Okay, so part 3 of this week, where we're looking at Daniel Miller, we're going to just very briefly discuss, some of the goods and bads of his argument and consumer culture analysis in general. So, I suppose the kind of discussion questions that I've put here: can one be a cultural dupe and a self-sacrificing gift giver at the same time? Advertising might make me aware of something my friend might like and I buy it from him. Am I being duped there? Can conformity be an act of agency that he talks about in the work on genes? Can shopping ever be ethical? How does the rise of digital technology affect this stuff about the comfort of things? I want you to say a bit about that. And, more broadly, an important thing that Miller's critiqued about is the sustainability aspect of consumption, where for people to live like we do in the West is completely unsustainable. People in the majority world can't consume like that simply because we don't have the resources or enough Earths to do it. So to have this kind of materiality that Miller's interested in kind of feels unsustainable in that sense. So what do you think about the idea of can you be a cultural dupe and a self-sacrificing giver at the same time?
I think you can. I think that I think believing we're all beyond being duped is not helpful, and I think that it's thinking that's not grounded in anybody's lived reality, in that we all have desire and we all have aspirations. What fuels those desires and aspirations is not fully within our control. And I think that pretending we can is also another way of conforming to a certain kind of cultural of niche, right? And so I think that's important. I think that what you begin to see more and more in our society is conscious gift giving. Instead of buying you some big thing wrapped in plastic in a package, I will give you vegetables to plant in your garden and something nice, or I will give you I'll contribute towards sponsoring someone without access to go to holiday classes for painting or something like that. There's always kind of ethical gift giving.
Giving them experiences rather than things.
Giving them experiences rather than things. And obviously then there's a kind of network of capitalism that's grown up around that. But I do think...
And distinction going on by giving a particularly ethical thing.
And look how ethical I am, and look how much I care about things, and I would never give you something ghastly made out of plastic. However, if we sort of return to Miller, we're within this thing, and we do have a lot of social expectations about participating in society in these different ways, and there are choices that we can make, limited within a larger framework of consumption.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the question that I've got there is obviously a piss take in a way, in the sense of what I've been talking about is these perspectives all offer us different points of view on things, and none of them are completely right or completely wrong. And so I think that's actually implicit in Miller's work as well. He doesn't necessarily say that ideology isn't a thing and this kind of stuff, but he's more interested. His object of study in that sense is this more kind of everydayness rather than the kind of political economy, I suppose.
Yes, how things are lived and experienced at that everyday level, not whether they're right or wrong. And I think that's the important distinction, is that it's important to think about the right and wrong, but not every study can be a dogma on right and wrong. It has to be how to sort of quote unquote ordinary people live and experience.
So this relates to that kind of question about sustainability that we'll leave to the last bit. So I suppose, what do you think? So as it appears in this course that I'm the consumption person and you're the tech person, what do you think, the rise of digital technologies kind of means for something like Miller's argument?
It's a really interesting one, because I think what digital technology does is it transmits desire and ideas, but almost all of those desires get manifest materially as something, right? So you might be looking at interior designs online through your phone, and you get ideas about things you want it to look like this or that, or you might see that a particular influencer or celebrity or television program bedroom looks like that, and so you want that. So what I think it does is it has a way of kind of transmitting a broader set of desires, heightening those desires, etc. Technologies themselves are things that bring comfort, and it's become much more cheaper, much less to have big screen on one wall in one room, big screen on another wall in another room. You can cast something to that one, cast something for other family members in that one, etc. So they become part of that sort of array of things. But I think the idea that we therefore worship and dominate these things only and don't pay attention to anything else around them, and people only look at screen. I just don't believe that's necessarily true. So I think that they're devices that heighten and transmit desire and aspiration. They're objects themselves that fit with his comfort of things. But rarely, I mean, it's probably different for people who have big gaming suites and things in their houses, but rarely are they the prominent things on display that people project about themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So I think another part of the course we talk about why we post. And so Miller has taken his kind of materiality and very much kind of everyday anthropological understanding to start looking at things like Facebook and stuff like that.
Yes.
So
and
as well.
We will talk about that, but ends up making sort of a similar, don't be so harsh on people for doing this argument, right?
Yeah, and I suppose in the ambivalence is here is, okay, so while Facebook is, tracking us and doing all this and maybe manipulating what we buy or who we vote for, it's also allowing us to connect to people around the world at once and this kind of stuff. So there's ambivalences here going on as well. Okay, the last kind of critical orientation here is about the sustainability stuff. So in a book that followed The Comfort of Things, Consumption as Consequences, Miller kind of takes on some of these critiques that about the unsustainability of consumer culture. From a political economy's perspective, again, rather unsatisfactorily, that doesn't have a lot of answers for those things, I think. But again, it's the first chapter in particular is a kind of good way of thinking about the different sides of the debate. He has this kind of story there where there's like a socialist character, an anthropologist character, a kind of economist character that kind of talk through some of these issues. So it's very worthwhile checking out. And there's a video there of Miller talking about his own work as well. So to conclude this week's content, I really like Miller's work, while not necessarily agreeing with it all. I think
it's a nice way to put it,
and I think it's really important, I think, to have what I would call like the actual representation of research participants' lives in research.
Yeah.
Quite often sociologists, and I'm probably guilty of this myself, are as much interested in the ideas as the data ourselves, and sometimes I think the actual what people are doing and living disappears in that kind of analysis. Miller is very much like almost obsessed with kind of presenting the actual things that people say and not kind of twisting them or moving around too much because of theoretical interests. So I think that in and of itself is really important. But that's what I really love about it. And I think in terms of his understandings of consumer culture, I think it's really valuable. Again, I also think, Franklin School of Bourdieu, all these other people will have interesting things to say as well. But I do think a key problem that's lacking in Miller's work is or at least the work we're talking about here, is the problem of sustainability and waste, which we go into in lots of detail throughout the course later on. So we'll address some of those things then.
Yeah, great.
Okay, thanks.